We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Sunday. We're in the weekend. Things a little low key. It's going to be a busy week next week. Monday, tomorrow, is the Iowa caucus. I suspect Donald Trump will win. There's a battle of second place between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. Nikki may be even gaining some ground and she may win, which will give her more power going into New Hampshire, but she's still way behind Donald Trump. So I don't know what's really going to come out of the Iowa caucus. I don't know that anybody really fucking cares at this point. The Republicans are still sold on Donald Trump in spite of all we've seen and all we've heard. So that just tells me we've got a lot of dumb people fucking voting, and that means people in Iowa. With all due respect to Eric and some of the other folks I know in Iowa, I know not everybody's an idiot in Iowa, but there's enough of them to get a dumb fuck like that enough votes to win the caucus. But it's cold as shit there. And there's a lot of snow there. It's going to be interesting to see how many people show up to vote. And I got to tell you, we don't have much snow here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the metro area, but it is colder than a motherfucker. I mean, it was about 5 above today. My wife and I went off to see a women's Gopher hockey game, just walking from the car to the arena. Fucking ridiculous. I was getting a headache. It was so cold. Now, remember, I was born and raised here. This ain't nothing new to me, but I hate it more every year. That's why I'm glad we'll have the opportunity to get out of the cold now and again. You need that kind of break from this shit. It's very oppressive. I think it's more oppressive than the heat, but that's just me. I wanted to bitch about something too. I was going to do it on TikTok and I thought, it's probably not going to do me any good and it's probably going to hurt me in the long run. You know, TikTok put me in this creative beta plan where they pay you a certain amount of money or the number of views you get. It's not a lot of money, but it's decent enough, and it's kind of nice after all these years not getting paid anything. And it's funny, when they started you out in the program, they paid you X amount per thousand, and then it whittled down to like half of that. I don't know what the deal is. But anyway, if you're in the program, in order for the video to qualify for the program, it has to be over a minute. It has to be a non-duet thing. It's got to be just you, which is not hard for me because that's how I do it. All my stuff usually goes over a minute and it's generally just me. And to be honest with you, TikTok doesn't really bug me as much as they do other people, but from time to time they do something. And I had a TikTok flagged by TikTok, and they said, we're not going to let you have this in the plan because of the originality clause, meaning they're suggesting I took somebody else's material and put it out on TikTok, which I don't do. People ask me, did you write this? No, I don't write it. I have a story I kind of created in my mind and I just spew it out. There's nothing written and it's not taken from anybody else. Bits and pieces of facts are, but my words are my words. So they took it down because they said it was a violation because of originality. Absolutely ridiculous. That isn't the worst thing that I'm mad about with this. So whenever they take a video down or something like this, you have the opportunity to appeal it, which I did. I appealed it. Now, they rejected that appeal. And again, I'm not even as mad about that as how they did it, because I appealed it and within 2 minutes, they said, no, we reject it. Well, how in the fuck? First of all, it is original. Second of all, how did you review it in 2 minutes? I mean, it's like I can appeal, but it really doesn't count for much. I'm just going to fucking say no. That pissed me off. But even that I can deal with. The video didn't get that many views. It's not that much money. It's not a big deal. I'm not really worried about that. But here's my biggest problem with TikTok in this situation. You tell me my video isn't original, even though it is, and I can prove it. All you have to do is fucking listen to it and you know. And you take it out of the program. Okay, it's your place, it's your fucking app. You can do what you want. But what really angers me about this is they can do that to me off something that is purely original. Say they'll listen to my appeal and then don't and just shove it back in my face. I can deal with all that stuff. But while all this is going on for the last month, 2 months, there are at least 3 people out there that are impersonating my account. You know, they make a variation on my name. Like one is Rashana Boomer. They took out the L, but they use my face. They put up my videos, and there's at least 3 of them out there. Now, I've reported all of them. All of the listeners and viewers on TikTok, I told them, I said, can you report these people? These accounts have been reported multiple, dozens of times. And each time TikTok says, yeah, they're not doing anything wrong. See, that's what pisses me off. You have the audacity to say that what I'm doing is not original. And then when somebody is stealing my shit, you say that's okay. That's a fucking problem for me. That's irritating. I don't know that there's anything I can do about it. I've tried. I've made personal pleas to TikTok. All the followers or peers have made complaints and reported it, and it's just fucking ridiculous. Uh, there's a certain amount of inequality there. Somebody who's actually doing something on a regular basis. Now I'm not the biggest creator, but I'm a big enough creator, and I'm putting out TikToks every day. And I guarantee you, based on what I do and what everybody else does, TikTok is making a shitload of money. At the very least, they could give us the accommodation to actually listen to our appeal and do something. Take a look at people impersonating us. It's not just me, it's everybody. They're all getting impersonated. And it's frustrating. So the only thing I can really do about it is just sit there and fucking deal with it, which is fine. I don't know what the future of TikTok is. I like TikTok. I'll continue on TikTok as long as I can. But I'm glad I've got YouTube and not so much Instagram and Facebook. You know, basically what I do is I put the TikToks on Facebook and Instagram too, and on YouTube. But on YouTube, it's a little different. I don't get fucked with as much. And on YouTube, you get all the TikToks and you get the podcast, the one you're watching now. So I don't know if my future is on YouTube or whatever. I'm not running off of TikTok at this point. They're useful in a few ways. I get paid a little bit of money, and the whole point of TikTok in the first place was just to gather an audience so that I could pull them over to the podcast, and that has worked to a certain extent. I just had to get that off my chest. I'm not one to go and cry on TikTok because it doesn't do any fucking good. And I don't want to look like a whiny bitch like some of these other people do. But you and I are family here, so I thought I'd tell you what's irritating me. Hell, I tell you what's irritating me all the fucking time. Again, tomorrow's the caucus. It's going to be interesting. We'll talk about that a little bit. It sounds like Nikki Haley is starting to pull ahead of Ron DeSantis, which I think is interesting. If she beats Ron DeSantis in um, Iowa, it's conceivable that Ron DeSantis will pull out after that point. I mean, his future and his prospects with regards to these primaries don't look good. Every day he looks worse. In fact, people are making fun of him. I saw a video where he was in Iowa getting ready for the caucus, and some guy who claims to be a comedian walks up to him and said, Mr. DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, I wanted to present you with this trophy. It's a participation trophy. We know you're not going to win, but we thought you'd be rewarded with a trophy anyway, so you can go home to Florida with something. And so, of course, what happened? Ron got all flustered, and some of his handlers came out and walked that motherfucker out the building into the cold. Nobody's taking Ron DeSantis serious anymore. He's such a weirdo, such a fucking freak. I also wanted to thank Christy for coming on yesterday. That was her first time on the show. I like Christy a lot because she's no bullshit, no nonsense. She has occasion to swear. So it was fun to talk to her. She's a very smart woman. And as I've said all along, when it comes to the guest on the program, that's my secret sauce, as it were. Always bring on somebody that's smarter than you, because then you look good. I just ask a leading question and let them take off, and they make me look good. So, thank you to Christy. I know a lot of people like Christy as they do Old Soul and Jace and Eric and all the rest. Now, for those of you that have been on the show and I don't list your name, it's because my head is muddled. I haven't had a guest that's been bad. So you're all valued and you're all welcome to come back. But I gotta, every time I have somebody new on the show or some of the older ones, I always get comments. And I got one comment from Catherine, uh, and she said, "Good show, loved it. More Christy." And I agree. If we can get Christy on the show more often, that'll be a good thing for the Rational Boomer podcast. And I think we will. Nice lady, smart lady, accomplished lady, and she is of a like mind, and she's no nonsense about it. All right. We'll start out with some emails. Got a shitload of emails. So I don't know how long this will go, but we got a bunch of emails. Hi, Mike. Not sure I want to have you read my email on your podcast, but I do have big shoulders, so what the heck? Well, if you didn't want me to read it, you shouldn't have sent it. I'm going to read it anyway. And she doesn't say anything crazy. She says, I'm a Canadian hairstylist and have been for 45 years. A large part of my job description is to provide consistent and ongoing support to those who have supported me over the years, along with a fantastic do. These days, American politics is top of my mind for many Canadians because many are worried about the negative influence of the far right on our Canadian political landscape. With the advent of the internet and the new global narrative, I find your podcast are such a refreshing departure from the mainstream media messaging, which clearly distorts reality and would like us all to crumble in a heap with no hope because it sells. Couldn't agree with you more. Though politics is not what I'm supposed to banter about with folks sitting in the chair, it's ludicrous to think I'd spend my lifetime stifled when it comes to such a large and prolific part of the human experience. The task, as I see it, is for me to be civil when conversing and to know exactly when to shut the fuck up. So when folks are open to it, I find myself these days recommending your podcast, given that we all need to um, hold the faith and remain positive about the blue wave we know America will experience in 2024. In describing your approach and demeanor, Mike, I find myself referencing the fact that you feel like a Canadian leading with kindness and balance and sensibility. Recently, Mike, this was a retort in a form of a question from Joyce. Maybe one of his parents or grandparents was Canadian. You ought to email him and ask. So here I am following up for Joyce, Mike, who, like many Canadians, is overlooked, forgotten, or just hasn't spent enough time in the U.S. to know firsthand that most Americans do not roll with the far right thinking profile that the media portrays. And you all are, in fact, just like Canadians, kind, polite, balanced, compassionate, caring, etc. Uh, Thank you sincerely, Boomer, for all your time, your sense of humor, perspective, compassion, patience, and caring as it's a global village now. And we're all in this together. With a warm regard, Tara. And I will respond to that letter as my granddaughter would respond to a puppy. Aw. No, thank you very much, Tara. I appreciate that. As far as me having a Canadian grandparent, I do not. But when I was growing up, I was always told about my pedigree background, this mutt background that I have, Swedish, Norwegian, um, German, English. and they always said French. But the interesting thing about it is that when we looked into it deeper, into the family tree, as it were, and unlike Republicans, I have a pretty wide ranging tree, not a telephone pole like Republicans do. Um, but apparently, the French connection into my background is actually French Canadian. I don't know who in my past was French Canadian, but there is some Canadian back there at some point way back. So you're right. There is some Canadian in me. And maybe that's leaking through my DNA and why the way I am the way I am. So I don't know, maybe. And, it's funny that you talk about going to the or being a hairstylist and talking about politics. Um, I'm the kind of guy that will talk all the time, and sometimes when I'd go to a barber, they don't talk, and then I just sit there quietly and hope to God they don't make me look stupider than I already look. Which isn't hard. My hair isn't hard to cut. Any idiot can do it, as I'll point out soon. Um, the thing is that I was in a I was in a barber shop one day, or a cost cutters or something. And the woman who was cutting my hair, think of the irony of this. She had no idea what she was getting into. She was a Trump humper. She was from uh, rural Minnesota, and she was a Trump humper by nature. And she starts spewing Trump stuff. And I'm looking in the mirror and going, do you shut up or do you say something? Well, you know me, I'm going to fucking say something. But instead of arguing with her, she'd say something and I'd ask her a hard question. Well, how do you know that? Well, it's all over the news. I go, what news do you watch? She goes, well, Fox. I go, well, Fox isn't news, it's entertainment. They even say it as much. Well, they're really, no, they're not news. They're not news. And what you just said is wrong because of this. And she got all flustered. And I said, ma'am, I'm not going to get in an argument with you about politics, but I can tell you from somebody who's been in business, if you don't know what I think, don't think you know what I think just because of what I look like. Um, Test the waters first before you engage in some stupid commentary, because I will call you out and I will make it uncomfortable for you. I won't yell at you, but I will make it uncomfortable for you. You should be happy to know that I won't call your boss and complain, because you will be punished enough once I get done with you. So I would just kind of put that in your pocket, finish the fucking hair, and let me go on my way, which he did, which was wise. Ever since then, my hair is, I don't, you can see my hair is sparse at best, and I just keep it a certain length, and there's nothing fancy about it. I don't get special haircuts like my sons might get. And and I said, I can fucking do this myself. I buy a razor and just cut it myself. My wife says, no, you can't do that. And then I was watching this interview with George Clooney, and he pointed out that he cuts his own hair. And they go, how do you do that? And believe it or not, and he was serious about this. He said, well, way back when they were popular and they were for sale, I bought a Flowbee. You remember what a Flowbee is? A Flowbee is kind of a razor or a cutter hooked to a vacuum cleaner. So you just swipe it across your head, and it sucks it up into the vacuum cleaner. Kind of a good idea, but my kids, my wife, everybody who has any sense of style thinks that's ridiculous. But I sat there watching. I go, fucking George Clooney can use a Flowbee. I can use a razor on my own hair. So I took some time, figured out I just cut my own hair. I don't have to talk to a Trump bumper anymore. I wanted to bring something else up. I got to figure out a way to post this. Maybe I'll do it on Facebook or Instagram. We have somebody that was on the show a few times, TJ. He's the guy that works with the unions and people in the building business. He'll be on again sometime soon. Um, he sent me a note and a picture, And and the note says, "Well, since you don't have any merch, I'm going to make some merch myself." And I thought, "Oh, this ought to be interesting." And there he has a picture of him and his wife standing there in black t-shirts with that logo you see on the podcast, that cartoon kind of thing that says Rational Boomer and that big dumb white face on it in cartoon form. Fucker took the picture, enlarged it, and put it on a fucking shirt. My son says, "You should tell him to cease and desist." He was kidding, of course. I said, "No, fuck no. If this guy wants to promote me for free, I'm all in. He's going to send me one. So I'll put it on and I'll show it to you." But I think it's hilarious. I'll try to post it so people can get an idea of it. But I think it's great. It's funny. Um, so while I don't have merch, TJ does. Anyhow, moving on. Next email says, "Just a thought I would reach out to let you know about the Moms for Liberty lady that got arrested for shoplifting at all places, Target. I'm sure you know about it, but I thought Target was bad for them and the children. What a bunch of fucks." And isn't one of the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not steal? That's ironic, isn't it? Anyway, he goes on to say, "How can they sleep at night? Just the thought, the hypocrisy was unbelievable. Thanks, Darren from Montana. Love all your like minded friends as well." Again, Darren. Thank you, Darren. Darren's been on the show too, if you remember. All right. The next email says, "Hello, Mike. Today, the gentleman who once was sent to the hospital by his mother a few years ago because he fucked up his neighbor's yard. The motherfucker, Senator Rand Paul, lu- um, lunged at Never Nikki movement, or I think he launched. It says lunch, but I'm sure he meant launched. Launched Never Nikki movement against former Trump UN ambassador. I believe I was one of the first to join the senator's movement and to fully support his efforts in banning Nimrata Nikki Randhawa. That's her real name. I also went ahead and created a list of similar nature that is just not just confined to motherfucker Nikki. I added several other super nasty individuals the list contains, and he's going to give us the list. Never fucking Nimrata Nikki Randhawa. Never dirty diaper Donnie. Never idiot and scholarship scammer Vivek Ramaswamy. Never son of a bitch Ron D. Satan. Never asshole Chris Christie. Of course, I reverse the right to add more to the list as the situation permits. Oh, yeah, it's always very fluid and always changing. So, by all means, let us know when you change that up. He says, "Keep up the good work, my friend. As always, looking forward to hearing your podcast. Sincerely, Joe." Thank you very much, Joe. Now we got an email from Old Soul. Actually, we got a couple from her today. She says, "Hey, Boomer, I was writing an email, then came across some additional information. So this will be a dual subject email. Subject 1. I saw your video titled Distracted. Looks like the House GOP has more distractions since your video. They have decided to open 2 new investigations. The first is to investigate Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin for not notifying the proper individuals that he was hospitalized. Even though he was working while hospitalized, he still didn't notify his chain of command, and for some reason, that has to be investigated. The second investigation they're launching is into Cassidy Hutchinson. We mentioned that yesterday. They're investigating her for waiving attorney client privilege with her first attorney and then changing her story with her second attorney. They're implying she lied to Congress during the January 6th hearings, the same hearing they call illegitimate and a sham. They use sham and illegitimate to explain why they ignored the subpoenas. I guess it was a valid hearing if your name is Cassidy Hutchinson, but not valid if you're a member of the House GOP. This abuse of power is unbelievable. This will blow up in their faces, just like the Hunter Biden fiasco. It's public knowledge Trump paid for her first attorney who told her to lie. And when she got her own attorney, she was advised to tell the truth. Of course, she changed her fucking story because she decided instead to tell the truth. The truth is what she told the January 6th committee under oath. Going after Hutchinson is a horrible idea, but then again, since when has the GOP had an idea that wasn't horrible? Hit the nail on the head, old soul. Subject number 2. Do you remember the USDA food program? The program that gives $40 per month per child for families 185% or more below the poverty line. The following states in alphabetic order are choosing not to participate in the program: Alabama, Alaska, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, Vermont, and Wyoming. All red states. I'm not so sure about Vermont, but mostly red states at the very least. She goes on to say, hold on, I screwed up. I have a script of these emails in front of me, and if I hit the wrong thing, then the motherfucker goes way off course. And then I have to slow it down and start over. So just bear with me a second. Okay, we talked about the following states that are refusing the money from the government. She says if you have any listeners living in these states, they can access food for the summer through SFSP. This program is available in all 50 states. If they Google SFSP in their area, they should be able to see which locations are available to them. Instead of being able to purchase their own food, the food will be given to children similar to a food bank. Also, they'll have to travel to the designated locations, but food will be provided. I know when you're in poverty, traveling may be challenging, but I wasn't able to find any other options in these red states. If I do, I'll be sure to pass along the information. Hopefully, this is helpful to those with children in need living in the above states. Thanks for all you do, Old Soul. Old Soul is always full of information, and I appreciate it immensely. She'll be back on next week. Love having her on. All right, the next one. Good morning, Mike. A winning combination with you and Christy. Great rapport with plain old-fashioned sense. Will do my part to encourage others to listen to your content. On another note, Georgia DA Fani Willis is presently being accused of improprieties involving Nathan Wade, a prosecutor, special counsel actually, paid by her office. Republicans use accusation and slander against opponents. That's what they do. Last year, the Georgia Supreme Court denied a GOP state bill to discipline and remove Georgia state prosecutors for inappropriate behavior or wrongdoing. Republicans are not quitters, especially when it comes to dirty tricks. I'm sure since the ruling, these weasels have been working diligently to make the required changes in order to get the bill passed. What are the chances the mudslinging is a prelude to pursue this affair after resurrecting and invoking the bill to remove Miss Willis? Thanks for your great content, Paul. Now, see, this is the stupid thing about it. We're going to talk more about that story and give more details in a little bit in the second half. But say they were successful in removing Fani Willis. Does that end the case? No, of course not. Somebody in the office will take her place and the case will go on. This is all about the Trumplafucks trying to do something and think they're doing something, but in the end, it's a bunch of bullshit. They're not going to remove Fani Willis from this. As I understand it, this information is supposed to be coming from a divorce that Mr. Wade is involved in. But that's weird because we understand that the documentation from that divorce are sealed. So if they're sealed, how do they know any of this stuff? And if they got them unsealed illegally, how did they do that? Or are they just making wild guesses just to create this narrative? I'm thinking that's more the case. But even if she did have an affair with this guy, that doesn't affect the case at all. They aren't going to remove her. People are worried about this, but don't fucking worry about it. It's going to be fine. And again, we'll talk more about that story in the second half of the program. All right. We will take a quick break and we will be right back. We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We're moving through the podcast, as it were, and we've got lots of stuff to talk about. A lot of emails. We still have more emails. Oh, look at that. I still have this earbud in my ear. This is from when I was listening to the news and TikToks and such. I don't need that here, but it's kind of a nice fashion touch, isn't it? Anyway, I take that out. Now I can hear better, but I'm only listening to me, so why do I need to do that? Anyway, we have some more emails. Hey, Boomer, I had you and Old Soul on my walk with me the other day. She truly is a good woman and a human being, and thanks for sharing her with the world. She is a good woman. She's very smart, articulate, and she's truly one of the good people. On a lighter note, you digging what Dirty Diaper is doing to poor little Nikki? Yeah, that's kind of what I expect. I expect whoever comes out ahead uh, in this Iowa caucus, Donald Trump is going to spend the next couple weeks just fucking trying to destroy them. Donald Trump doesn't like anybody that's going to compete with him, and frankly, Nikki Haley is getting very close to him in New Hampshire, and that's probably making him a little nervous. Apparently, according to DJT, she's not a citizen. She's not qualified to run for president. Of course, most of the racist party, white Anglos, and Trump-tard cultists are going to go right along with what they said, just like they did with the birther movement and Obama. And don't forget about Ted Cruz. He did it to Ted Cruz, too, even though Ted Cruz loves him and worships him. The woman was born in South Carolina. This is not only ridiculous, but hysterically hilarious. Face it, Nikki, baby. What they're saying here is you ain't white enough, first off. Nikki damn well knows the Republican Party is blatantly racist. What does this really say about her? It's pretty obvious she's possibly made some poor life decisions here. Holy shit, babe. Hey, Nikki, I think maybe you're in the wrong party. What do you think? At this rate, you're going to need way more popcorn and way more beer to enjoy the crazy shit show. As I always say, now that's entertainment. Holy crap. Thanks for your insight, Boomer. Hello to Old Soul, Z-Man. Actually, Christy and I were talking about this yesterday on the show. I can't possibly imagine that the Republican Party would have Nikki Haley as their nominee. She's a woman. She's a child of immigrants of East Indian descent. That doesn't fit anywhere in the Republican Party's direction. I don't see her being the nominee. But if she kicks Ron DeSantis out of it, then there's just Nikki Haley. And then if Donald Trump somehow keels over or drops out somehow, that leaves Nikki Haley. But no Trump humper would vote for Nikki Haley. It's a fucking mess. And it's what I've said before. This is why they can't win in 2024. The party's just too divided. They can't even come up with an idea for a budget plan. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. We got a little bit of good news and bad news on that. The next email says, Hi, Mike. I've been on the road traveling to Quartzsite, Arizona, where I will spend most of the winter months. I'm a full-time traveler, and my dog and I live in our brand new Ram PropMaster van, which I built out. It is perfect for us, as the last 1.5 years I was traveling in my Class C. Loved it, but just way too big and a gas hog. Anyway, that's a little backstory of Jack and I. And she gives me a link here to Gracie and Jack's Adventures on YouTube. I'm going to check that out. You should check it out too. Gracie and Jack's Adventures on YouTube. Now she goes on to say, I want to donate money to Old Soul. I know I can donate to the main website, but I wanted to send her money directly to help support her household when she's helping the women in need. I bet she spends a lot of her own money for the cause, and this is why I would like to donate to her household. Can you please help me with getting her the monies? I left a comment under the post from yesterday and I do not see a response. This is a private email, so please do not read it on the air. Sorry. I'm not giving your name though. Um, and there's nothing wrong with it. I won't read any further. It's nice that you would make that offer. It's nice that you would make that offer. And I don't know that Old Soul um, really can or would do that sort of thing. I mean, I know she appreciates the sentiment, but I don't know that she would do that. But as luck would have it, I have kind of a response in an email. I won't go any farther with the email. It ends up best regards, Gracie. And I hope you don't mind, Gracie. You didn't say anything untoward and nothing embarrassing. And I'm not giving out your full name or anything like that. And let's be honest, I'm not fucking Joe Rogan here. It's not like I got billions of listeners. Now, I don't even know if Old Soul wants me to read this, but like I've told you before, my fucking show. Hey, Boomer, I truly appreciate your audience. They are just amazing people. There were a few people in the comments that offered to donate, but my response was to direct them back to the NAF website. I think my response wasn't received because I posted an email or a web address, which caused my comment to get blocked. I'm thinking that's not allowed on YouTube. I'm going to have to give personal donations some thought, but I feel taking away anything from the website is taken away from the woman who could really use the funds. And that's just who she is. I don't, I'll put it to you this way. Old Soul's got a good job. She's not struggling, thankfully. And if she were, we'd all want to help her, but I don't think that's the problem. I think she's doing this out of the goodness of her heart. And if there's money to go to anybody, it would be to the organization to help the folks that ultimately see Old Soul. So, Gracie and Old Soul, I'm sorry if you didn't want me to read that email on the show, but I just fucking did. Sorry if you're angry with me, but I got to be honest with you. Pissing off women is something I've done all my life. But I don't mean to be mean about it. But I think you both had something important to say, and it's important that the listeners hear it because, like I say, it's like a family. It's not like a bunch of people that don't like us or don't think like we think. So I think you're safe. I think you're fine. Don't worry about it. Um, and I've always said about the podcast, you will get people that do podcasts and TikToks, and they're always trying to find ways to make money. And God bless them for doing that because they maybe need to do that. I don't need to do that. I'm not looking to grift money from anybody. And I know Old Soul feels kind of the same way. We appreciate the sentiment because I've had people do that to me before and say, I want to support your content. You know how you support my content? You just keep listening, you keep watching. The only thing this costs you is your attention. That's all I care about. If there's money to be made other ways from TikTok or the podcast or something, let some other fuckers pay me. It's not enough to get too freaked out about, but I'll take their money if they want to give it to me. I don't want your money in any way. That's why I said, regards to merch, I'm not looking to increase my bottom line by selling merchandise. I just soon give it to somebody who needs it, like this organization that Old Soul works with. So, and somebody even suggested that. But I'm not too on top of shit about getting merch going, but apparently fucking TJ is. All right, the next email goes like this. Hi, Boomer. Well, aren't you a timely motherfucker? I don't know, am I? So I'm sitting enjoying a cheeseburger in the Browns game and a little TikTok, and I'm pretty content. Then a creator pops up and is freaking out about Fani and her alleged boyfriend. I haven't followed that story, so I go, what the fuck? I Google it and I get a little concerned. So then I pop open TikTok again, and what comes up first? But one rational boomer talking about exactly that topic. This old rascal tells me not to worry and why not to worry. And that's good enough for me because I know he studies this stuff. So thanks for that, best garage door Jeff. P.S. Next time you're in St. Augustine, try Osteen's for delicious fried and broiled seafood. I have a feeling that joint is going to be right up your alley. Well, you said the two words I love the most, fried and broiled. As much as people don't want me eating that shit, I do. All right, the next one says, Hi, Mike. Just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate your straight talk is the best, even though you use the F word. That makes it a lot better. I'm a 73-year-old grandmother with 6 grandchildren. You're looking out for the future generations of this country. I appreciate all you do and the guests on your podcast. Thank you very much, Linda. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that. And I'm glad you get why I'm doing this. A lot of people go on TikTok or on podcast and they want to make money and they want to get famous. Neither one of those things is important to me. I mean, if there's a certain amount of notoriety, I like it only because those people I'm trying to rub it in their face, my former employers, it's good for that. But that isn't my goal. Um, you live your life and you do a lot of good things and you do some bad things. Everybody goes through shit. And I decided that now that I'm in my retirement years and I can do what I want and not worry about the money thing, I'm just going to do what I want. And if I can do some good in the process, all the better. And that's why I do it, because I look to my kids and I look to my granddaughter and I think, this is a fucking mess. Somebody needs to do something. Now, I don't know that anything I'm doing is going to help, but at least when my granddaughter looks back, she can say, at least he fucking tried. All right. Next one says, Hi, Mike. I heard Marjorie Trader Green was threatening Johnson that if he insists on bringing the bipartisan deal to the floor, she will support the motion to vacate the chair. Wow, have the Republicans learned their lesson? Apparently not. Anyway, I heard Democrats would save Johnson if he's willing to offer a power sharing agreement. But if Johnson makes a power sharing deal, he'll be listed as a traitor by the MAGA base. So basically, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Johnson is fucked big time. Jin. Well, let's be perfectly honest. Johnson was fucked the moment he accepted the job. This was never going to be an easy thing. This was never going to be something that he was going to excel at or succeed in. Uh, but his ego got the best of him and says, Yeah, I want the title, just like Kevin McCarthy did. Now, what's Kevin McCarthy doing? He's retiring and he'll be out of the business. And thank God for that. And I have a feeling, even though Mike Johnson is younger, he may be done after this little go round as well. All right, as I said, we're going to talk about this situation down in Georgia that everybody's so worried about. So, allegations against Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who is leading the prosecution of Donald Trump in Atlanta, seem unlikely to wholly derail the attempt in Georgia to hold the former president accountable in his attempt to overturn the 2020 election. But basically, what they've done is handed him additional grist for a grievance-based politics and could certainly delay the trial until after the 2024 election. I don't know about that. I don't know if they'll be able to delay it. This little thing with Fani Willis is just all about the messaging and the narrative than it is actually a legal problem. Now, in a court filing Monday, a lawyer for former Trump campaign staffer and co-defendant Mike Roman alleged that Willis had engaged in inappropriate personal romantic relationship with special prosecutor she hired for the case in what amounted to a conflict of interest worthy of disqualification. Uh, yeah, I don't see that. How does that even play into this? The filing urging the court to dismiss the charges against Roman and disqualify Willis from prosecuting the case alleges that the district attorney and special prosecutor Nathan Wade were engaged in a romantic relationship prior to her bringing him onto the case. It further argues that Wade, whose firm handles car accidents and family law disputes, is underqualified for the position, for which he has already claimed at least $654,000 in legal fees. Funny they should bring up the not qualified thing. You know who else is not qualified? Brett Kavanaugh. Amy Coney Barrett. She's not qualified to be on the Supreme Court. Aileen Cannon down in Florida. She's not qualified. The legal system said as much, but they're still there. It's ironic that you would try to question somebody's viability in a job when you have so many that are unworthy of being in their current positions. To justify seeking Willis's disqualification, the filing alleges that Wade took Willis on vacations, presumably with money he earned from the position, creating a conflict of interest. Well, now that's a fucking stretch. The district attorney and special prosecutor have been engaged in an improper, clandestine personal relationship during the pendency of this case, which has resulted in special prosecutor and in turn the district attorney profiting significantly from this prosecution at the expense of taxpayers, states the filing submitted by Roman's lawyer, Ashley Merchant. Imagine that, profiting from the taxpayers. Who in the world would do that? Well, Donald Trump, to the tune of several $1 million, but apparently that's not of concern to you. Again, the important thing to remember here, this isn't Donald Trump's lawyers. This is his co-defendants. And this guy is a low-level guy. No doubt his lawyer is shitty, and they're just grabbing at straws. They're not going to be able to pull this off. Like I said, the allegations are largely based on sealed records from ongoing divorce proceedings between Wade and his wife of 28 years. So if the records are sealed, how do they know anything? Are they just presuming? Are they taking scuttlebutt and just throwing it out there as if it's real? That sounds like a fucking Republican. Yeah, they're going to have a tough time proving this. And so far, it's been unsubstantiated. The allegations have already thrown a wrench into Willis's efforts to hold Trump and 18 co-defendants to account for actions aimed at overturning the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. But here's what you got to understand. Even if this somehow delays it for Donald Trump, this is probably the case that will go to court last. It's probably going to go past the 2024 election anyway. But between now and then, with a lawsuit in DC and Florida, because I think Aileen's going to get her ass kicked out of there pretty quick. She's fucking up big time. There's going to be so much that goes before the Georgia thing ever happens. It won't matter. It doesn't matter. We only need one case to go forward and a couple of felony charges where he's convicted. That's all we need. So don't get too freaked out about Georgia. What they're doing is a bunch of bullshit. It's not working. And Donald Trump has no chance of winning the presidency. And even if he did, he can't pardon himself from a state crime. Now, Anthony Michael Crease, an associate law professor at Georgia State University, says, "We have a lot of smoke, very little fire. As a legal matter, that means there's really nothing there yet. And so this is all a political issue now." And that's all it ever is. The whole thing with Joe Biden and crooked Hillary Clinton. It's not about real legal problems. It's about noise and narrative and rhetoric and just trying to change people's minds that Donald Trump is really innocent and this is all just a hoax. Well, I'm sorry, that's not going to fucking work. The Trump legal team and conservative media have jumped on the allegations as a justification to cast the entire prosecution as corrupt. Ironic, isn't it, that they're talking about corruption? This move follows the tried and true PR strategy pursued by Trump ever since he entered the political fray, talking about the birther issue and all of that stuff. This is all they do. They make noise and they never have anything to fucking back it up. Never have a thing to back it up. So, for those of you that are worried about this, don't be. This is just more noise. And if you're worried about the Georgia case to be delayed, don't worry about that too, because after he gets all his money and property taken away, which is going to happen within the next couple of weeks, and after he gets convicted in the Manhattan district and in Washington, D.C., there ain't going to be much left of Donald Trump. It's not, it may not even fucking matter. I'd like to see him tore down and still have to go through court in Georgia and deal with that bullshit. And he will, whether it's before or after the election. But don't worry about it, because there's plenty of shit coming before the election, and Donald Trump will be a fucking oil stain. That's all he'll be. All right. Bit of good news, bit of bad news. The bad news is this. We've been waiting for Congress to come up with an answer um, for these spending bills and the budget and such, so we can keep the government open. We know there's a deadline for January 19th. And if they don't come up with a plan, then the country shuts down. I've told you many times before that's not going to happen. It's going to cause too much damage to the Republicans, and they aren't going to let it happen. And Mike Johnson is too big of a pussy-ass bitch to let it happen. In spite of what MAGA is doing to him and threatening him with, he's not going to do it. He's just not. Well, anyway, the good news is that congressional leaders have come to an agreement on a two-tranche short-term funding bill to keep the government funded into March, a source familiar with the matter told CNN. So that means the leaders have come up with another CR, continuing resolution. Yep, that's the good news. The government won't be shut down. The bad news is they still can't get their shit together, and they're asking for another 2 months to get their shit together, and they won't even do that. The new continuing resolution will fund the government through March 1st and March 8th. The agreement comes just before the first funding deadline of January 19th. The second one is a deadline for February 2nd. Now, House Republicans will have a conference call Sunday, today, to discuss the continuing resolution, the source told CNN. And the text of the resolution is been sent out, so they all get a chance to look it over and decide what they're going to do. And they'll pass it. They have to. They'll walk it up to January 19th, and they'll dick around with it. But it'll get done. Schumer and House Speaker Mike Johnson announced last weekend that they had reached an agreement on top-line spending numbers, the first step in the process to fund the federal government. Those numbers included $1.59 trillion for fiscal year 2024 and $886 billion for defense spending and $704 billion in non-defense spending. Schumer and Johnson also agreed to a $69 billion side deal in adjustments that will go toward non-defense domestic spending. But of course, the far-right members of the House GOP conference slammed the deal, and some have pushed to include border policy changes in exchange for not shutting down the government. The blowback highlights the challenge for Johnson, who's leading an extremely narrow majority. Johnson said Friday the deal remains in place after he appeared to be at least entertaining the idea of abandoning it in meetings with conservatives. Now, what's going to happen if they do this continuing resolution? Mike Johnson's going to be on the hook. There are going to be people in the MAGA group screaming to get him kicked out of the speaker's chair. Go ahead and do it. Who are you going to get? You had to scrape the bottom of the barrel to get Mike Johnson. Jim Jordan's not going to be able to get it. Matt Gaetz isn't going to be able to get it. So who's going to get it? Nobody. I'd be surprised if they kick him out, but I was surprised when they kicked out Kevin McCarthy. So there's no telling what dumb fucks like the Trump-la-fucks would be willing to do, but we'll see. But again, whether they have a Speaker of the House or not, it doesn't really matter because they're getting nothing done. This is probably the most unproductive Congress in the history of this country. So who's to expect them to get anything done by November of 2024? I'm certainly not. We're all kind of in a holding pattern until we get some reasonable people in Congress. And with any luck, when we have the election in November of 2024 this year, we'll get some Democrats in power in the House and the Senate, and then we'll start getting things done. Fuck the Republicans. Now, in terms of the Iowa caucus, former President Donald Trump holds a very wide lead over Republican presidential competitors. Among likely GOP caucus goers in Iowa, the final Des Moines Register NBC News poll before Monday's caucuses found overall 48% of likely caucus goers say Trump would be their first choice. 20% name South Carolina former governor, Nikki Haley, and 16% Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, with the rest of the field at about 10%. So Donald Trump is going to win easily. There's no question about that. But what does that mean? It's no surprise. If Nikki Haley beats Ron DeSantis for second, it may be the end for Ron DeSantis. I mean, it's going to be kind of embarrassing, and he's getting embarrassed every day anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if he drops out. Then that leaves Nikki and Donald Trump will spend as long as he's still in the race destroying Nikki Haley. Not destroying Joe Biden, destroying Nikki Haley. And this is where the Republicans lose. They're too divisive, they're too divided, and they're going to be tearing each other apart before they even look at Joe Biden. I mean, they'll try with Joe Biden, but what are they going to bitch about? Joe Biden is probably one of the most successful presidents as far as getting things done, with the most people pushing back in the history of this country. The economy's good. Everything's looking good for Joe Biden. And that is all going to count a lot for Joe, especially when you look at the Republican Party, who has accomplished nothing while being in session this last term. Now, Trump stood at 51% in December, the poll, in the DMR NBC poll, and 43% in October, with his chief rivals in the teens in both of those prior polls. Now, Haley's numerical move to second place is within the margin of error, so we don't know exactly how that's going to play out. Neither her support nor DeSantis has changed significantly since the December poll, when DeSantis stood at 19% to Haley's 16% in a survey with a 4.4-point error margin. Now, in this poll, Haley faces a sizable enthusiasm gap compared to Trump or DeSantis. While majorities of the supporters say they are enthusiastic about their candidates, only about 4 in 10 of hers say the same. Overall, roughly 2/3 of likely caucus goers, 68%, say their minds are made up about whom to support. The poll was fielded among 705 likely GOP caucus goers during the final stretch of the campaigning from January 7th to the 12th, with Trump backers far more likely to say they're committed to their candidate than those supporting other candidates. And who's surprised? This country is full of dumb fucks, and they will vote for Donald Trump. And it will be all for naught, because ultimately, between now and November, Donald Trump will not be the nominee. I'm just convinced of that. Now, with that said, as I've also said many times, if he is the nominee, if he does somehow last until November without getting convicted and being put in jail, or just being too overwhelmed and sick and whatever could happen to him, even if he is there, that is an absolute gift to the Democratic Party. Donald Trump has no chance of beating Joe Biden or any Democrat in the general election. He just doesn't. Everything about him is going south. I mean, all they have to do is do commercials of him saying he was proud of overturning Roe v. Wade, and it was all him. That right there is enough to get him not elected, not get enough votes to win shit, let alone the presidential election. We're watching the decimation of the Republican Party, and the funny thing about it is they're doing it to themselves. So maybe the Democrats sit back and just watch and let them do it to themselves. For whatever reason, they can't help it. They keep tearing themselves apart. So why stop it if a good thing is happening? So tomorrow is the Iowa caucus. It'll be mildly interesting to see how it turns out, but I don't think there's going to be any surprises. And in terms of Democrats' mindset, who really fucking cares? You're going to lose in November anyway, so we don't give a fuck what you're doing. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on Caucus Day.